the chat. I see y'all rocking, I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building, you know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, show your love, show your support, you know what I'm saying? This that dope soul, this that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Salute, Knick family. Welcome to Lunchtime Live. I'm here with my guy, Tony Crow. We're continuing our series on what does any team need to win a championship other than having the personnel or a contending roster. In my opinion, that's coaching, having a guy who can be the number one on a championship contending team, and then having a front office that's willing and able to pivot if needed to improve the roster. We talked about coaching last week. We went in depth on Tom Thibodeau. Today, we're going to talk about Jalen Brunson, whether or not he can be your best player on a championship contending team. And then we'll talk a little bit about the front office and the next show at 1 o'clock on Tony Crow's channel, Knicks and Bruises. He'll talk to you more about that. And, just so so I don't get a lot of grief, as a content creator, there's certain shows you have or certain questions you ask that to you as the host or to me as the host is a no-brainer. But there are some fans out there who may not think he could be the best player on a championship contending team. And so it's okay to have a show and ask the question and have an honest conversation around it. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to bring in my guy, Tony Crow, Knicks and Bruises. How are you?
Peace, Queen. Peace. Shout out to the chat. Ill Black this time. I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. Looking forward to, to the season. I'm bringing back the morning show, though it'll be at the recap show, I should say, even though it's going to be at lunchtime. So I'm preparing for that. Looking forward to that. Queen's Court rearing up, new format. Looking forward to that as well. So, yeah, super excited about this season.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too, for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to get into Brunson today. We got into Tom Thibodeau last week in terms of what do you need to win a championship. But before we get to the question of the hour, can he be the best player on a championship contending team? I want to just dive into him as a player, particularly since he's been with the Knicks. So let's just start with, having seen him now, it's just been 2 seasons, right? Wow.
Yeah.
What's been your impressions? I think both of us would agree that we didn't think he would be this good, but just watching him game in and game out over the past 2 seasons, what's been your impressions?
Well, number one, I agree. I didn't think he would be this good. You know what I mean? So I guess I don't want to say shocked, but let's say pleasantly surprised, right? Because I definitely thought he was a great pickup. I definitely thought he would be. I think I was higher on him than most fans in general.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, man, he surprised my expectation. At the time, I think I wasn't one of the people who thought we overpaid per se.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way I thought he was gonna outplay his contract. So you know what I mean? Yeah, man, pleasantly surprised would probably be the best way to navigate or my best explanation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I was asking for him years before the Knicks actually, got him. And I thought he could be the point guard on a championship contending team. I never thought the best player,
Yes.
but like this is a guy who can lead your team. He's a winner. He can be the point guard when we get to, championship contending status or we win a championship. I can definitely see this guy being the point guard on that team. He's smart, he's savvy, he's won in high school, he's won in college, he's steady. I think he would be, good for us. And lo and behold, he's even better than that. How has he grown since he's been here? And we'll talk about separately if there's any areas in which he can still grow. But have you noticed any changes in his game, any growth in the 2 seasons he's been here?
Well, let me start off. You just questioned that he's only been here 2 years, right? And it's because it feels like he's been here longer than that.
It does, right?
Like he's been like a lifer here in a sense, and it's because he's rose up the rankings so fast, right? As far as I mean, there's nuance to it because how many years have we been calling, asking, praying for a point guard, right? Like
Right.
that, the point guard has been the missing piece for years. Not championship missing piece, but just something that we have not had any stability in that position for any length of time. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the main things he brought when he came. Just some stability, right? Whether we thought he would be a superstar or the best player, no, we just needed
Right.
you know what I mean? A consistent,
Let
like,
somebody bring the ball up the court and initiate the offense.
oh, so that. But I think the biggest growth from him that I've noticed, I've seen, and it's him in leadership, but not just that. It's the acceptance. You know what I mean? It's the positioning, like the captaincy. It's his leadership. That would be the biggest growth area that I think I've witnessed from him coming into a new situation where we had a guy, we still have him, by the way, Julius Randle. You know, you know what I mean? He didn't just come in and you know what I mean, this is my spot, but he worked his way into it. And Randle will acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so the leadership will probably be the biggest growth in his short tenure here so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that because the first year you could tell he was real quiet. Quiet. I'm talking about on the court, of course. He wasn't very demonstrative. Um, he didn't really say much to the officials that I can remember anyway. And then last season, he was just real talkative to other players on the floor, to the officials, like really feeling comfortable. Um, and to your point, maybe feeling like this is my team now, or at least I'm at I can speak now. I've done enough that I can talk now, and be more demonstrative. Um, in terms of improvement, other than leadership, I think it's been showing that he can still perform despite the attention he's getting from the opposing team. Um, that's not always easy. He showed that in the playoffs against Miami. Um, Randall was there, but he wasn't at his best. Was Randall?
Yeah.
He was there, but he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't at his best. Um, and Miami threw what everything they had at him. But then also last season, entering the playoffs, albeit with a better team than the year before, without that clear number 2 guy, um, going up against a Philadelphia team with Nick Nurse, who's a very good defensive coach in terms of scheming, and he was still able to be effective and impactful, even if he wasn't as efficient as as he was. To me, that showed growth, and I always liken that to it's not most people can go 90 miles per hour on a straight dry road. But how many can drive that same 90 miles per hour on a wet, curvy road where you're still doing what you do, even though the field has changed and the field is harder? And that's what Brunson did for us in the playoffs. I think, I believe. last season. Just continually showed up, even though the field was getting tougher and tougher with players dropping off due to um, injury. So yeah, that's kind of where I've seen the improvement. Is just being able to take his game to another level in the playoffs, and that's not always easy to do.
Facts. I was gonna say the same thing. You know what I mean? The fact that he was able to elevate, you know what I mean? We talked about it after his first year. That was one of the first questions on multiple of our MBK shows is, can Brunson improve? You know what I mean? Like, can we even expect more from him? Because we were so satisfied with that first year, right? And you know, Randall goes down. So it started in that regular season, to be honest. You know, Randall goes down and Brunson's game elevates. You know what I mean? Playoffs, different animal. We get to the playoffs and he elevates from the regular season. And I mean, we talk about a man who I want to say he led the playoffs in scoring last year. I'm pretty sure he led this. You know what I mean? Even after it was all said and done, the finals and everything, he led the NBA playoffs in scoring last year.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like 99% sure. And that's a, you know what I mean? That's an elevation that we haven't seen as Knicks fans. I mean, I haven't seen as a Knicks fan in my life, like a guy who rises that high above the tide. And so yeah, the fact, that's another great point. His growth was the elevation. You know what I mean? Because we were satisfied where he was. you know what I mean?
And this excuse would have been here. Yo, he don't have anybody to release the pressure. They gunning him. They putting a lot of pressure on him. He's getting a lot of attention. What do you expect? He doesn't have those caliber of players around him. Wow. Do you see areas in which he can still grow?
This is not something I'm like dead set on or be like, oh, he has to do this. But if I have to pick an area, it's probably raising his assist level, his assists. You know what I mean? Even first year, I think he was at six assists per game. That's not bad. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm satisfied with that. But can you elevate it? You know what I mean? I'll be happy if he can elevate it closer to 10. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a necessity.
Right.
But with the upgrades in this roster, I think it's more than feasible. You know what I mean? It's not out of the realm of possibility. And I do think with everybody here, you know what I mean? That's the biggest question. Parrish Duggar has a comment if you want to put that up. But yeah, I think he has to kind of facilitate a little bit more, and it should be easier for him. You know what I mean? Like with the upgrades, Mikal here, you know what I mean? Randall coming back, OG potentially taking a step forward offensively. So I think he has the supporting cast to do that.
Yeah.
I guess my only question is that part of his DNA? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people look at him as he is a scorer. I think he does what is needed. And I think that's one of the great things that makes him a winner. If you need him to elevate his scoring, he's shown the capability of doing that. Let's just say, what if we need him to elevate his playmaking? I think he's capable. I would like to see it if need be.
Yeah, definitely if need be. I think I just want him to continue to refine and sharpen his floor game. He is a pass first point guard, and I think his assist totals are in line with other pass first excuse me, he's a score first point guard, and I think his assist totals are in line with other score first point guards in the league, whether that's Dame, um, Harding. Well, Harding was even higher. But if you look at these other score first point guards, I think his assist totals, are in line with that. I want him to elevate his floor game in terms of just being able to me, the elevation for him is more mental, more in terms of how he works the game. Um, so there may be times when he may come out and be like, you know what? I need to get so and so has been in a slump. Like this is how I want him to be thinking the game. So and so has been in a slump. I'm gonna try to get him off early, first quarter, get him going because I know I can get mine at any, at any time. Um, so and so is hot. I know I could take this guy, but I'm gonna keep going to the hot hand. Like to me, that's the floor, that's the thinking part floor game. I don't know if I want him to come out and be a facilitator. I don't know if I want him to come out and say, oh, we have more options now. I'm gonna be more of a facilitator because the other options we have, they're better because of the looks they're gonna get off of Brunson. They're not better if you just pass the ball to them and let them do their thing. I think we still need Brunson and Randall. Those are the stir drinkers, in my opinion. Those are the ones with the gravity. And it's because of their gravity that Mikal Bridges, DiVincenzo, OG are going to reach their full potential. I think him just being a Halliburton, I don't know if that's going to work for this particular um, for this particular team. So just
Yes.
the mental part, the floor game, be sharp. What do we need at this particular time? And like all of the stars across the league, there does come a time when they say, I'm about to take the next few shots. All of them, all of them do it.
I agree, and I think you explained it better than I did because I think that's what I was saying. I don't want him out there trying to go get 10 assists or lead the league in assists. But to your point, that mental part, let me get this guy out the slump. Mitchell Robinson's been running the floor 4 times in a row. Let me get him an easy one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I do think we've seen that from him with Randall. To the point, even last year, I think Randall was having his best year as a Knick prior to his injury, and I think part of that was Brunson in intentionally making sure Randall does not feel left out or doesn't feel like he's lost the team and it's solely my team. You know what I mean? So I do think we've seen a little bit of it specifically with Randall or for Randall. But to your point and what I was trying to say as well, yeah, I want to see it. Find the hot. Oh, DiVincenzo's hot. Let me continue to feed him. Oh, Mikal missed 2 out of his last 3. Let me get him an easy one, and you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree 100%. And it's a line. It's a thin line between forcing it and you know what I mean, doing it within the flow. But I think you worded it great. As far as it being a mental, I don't want to call it hurdle, but a mentality thing.
Yeah. Like just sharpening it, Just good now, but sharpen it. And you're gonna need it to be sharper the further you go in the playoffs. You're playing better teams. You're playing teams. Listen, when you get to the playoffs, everyone knows what you need to do to beat the Knicks or to beat Golden State or to beat whatever team you're playing. Do you have the personnel to do it? Do you have the personnel to actually execute the game plan? And the deeper you go into the playoffs, the better the teams you're playing, the more they do have the personnel, the sharper you need to be in your decision making. So for Brunson, I see it more as a just as the game presents different challenges, you have to meet it. That's just how it is on the road to, to a championship. Um, there was something you said that I wanted to follow up on, but y'all know my condition. I know my
I know the feeling too. I hate when that happens. You try to hold it in the back of your head.
Right. Um, yeah, I think, yeah. Anything else in terms of where he can continue to grow? I do think that Randall being back is going to help his game tremendously. And also having Mikal Bridges there as well, who, in my opinion, has the ceiling of at least a number, at least a number two. And hopefully he gets to run with that second unit to really, so we could take advantage of what he can do. I'm not sure we could be able to take advantage of all Mikal Bridges can do in that starting lineup with Randall and Brunson. But if he can get some minutes in that second unit, we'll get an opportunity to see more of what he can do. And honestly, in that first unit, oh, this is what I wanted to say. In my opinion, I never saw Brunson as a ball hog. I always saw him, just like I see Randall, as a willing passer. I've always saw him and Randall that way. Yes, there are times when he's going to take 2, 3, 4 shots in a row. But like I said before, all of the best players in the league do that because they just believe that, yo, we need a bucket. We need to separate ourselves right now. I could take this guy. I'm going to do it. So I've seen that from a lot of the better players in the league. So the only difference now is that he has more options because there was times when he would drive and when we had Grimes, he wouldn't pass it to him. And I think that had a lot to do with trust. I think there's more players on the floor that he trusts now. So I don't really see somebody being open other than them times when he felt like he got to do his thing, where he's gonna just gloss over them and not pass.
I agree. You said that and automatically I just remembered some people in the chat going crazy about about that. Oh, he passing up Grimes or he ain't looking at RJ.
Right. I think it was purposeful. He
Yeah,
saw
no,
it was purposeful. Shout out to the chat, the coolest 718, Kerry Cox, Josh, aka Uncle Fulio, Rebuild NYK, Parish Doug in the house, Danny Landis, Bang USA Sports, Just Knicks, Andrew K. Appreciate you, Just Knicks. And Andrew K was in the building early. Jack City. Appreciate you. Is he the best player on the team right now? And I say that respectfully to him, because there are still fans who don't think he is, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I just feel like as a content creator, I have to ask the questions, even if I don't, even if I know what my, what my answer is.
yeah, that's a easy yes. I'm a Randall guy, and there's no denying that Brunson is the best player on our team. I mean, and that's based off the playoff elevation, right? So I mean, I don't think there's anybody. You said there's people out there. I haven't heard from them too much. You know what I mean? But 100%, Brunson is the best guy on our team.
I agree, and I'm a Randall guy too, and he makes Brunson better. He definitely makes Brunson better. So the sooner he can get back, hopefully it's for that first game, the better the team is going to be and the better Randall is going to be. We have a super chat. Shout out to Josh, aka Uncle Fulio. Appreciate you rocking with us. Appreciate the super chat. Mikal is the key. If he can go get you a bucket, stand by. It's like Donovan Mitchell, but a defender who can go get you 25 to 30. Scary. Yeah, I agree. I like his upside. I see his ceiling, like I said earlier, at least a number two. And listen, if Mikel, let's say this team needs some restructuring and the team does need to pivot. And by that time, we know or really truly believe that Mikal Bridges can be a number two. You know, now maybe I'll start entertaining some Randall trades, of bringing in a number three or number four, whatever we may need if we do have to pivot. But before then, I just can't entertain it. But I do think he has that potential. He can get a bucket for himself. He can create for others. Now, will you still have to do it at a certain level that commands a double team, that commands attention, right? The best players in the league, whether you're number one or you're number two, command attention. And that's when now other players can get theirs off of you. And I think that remains to be seen with Mikal Bridges. And maybe he does. I just haven't been watching him game in and game out. Is
I'll
he
go.
that could command attention? Then all bets are off.
I'll go a step further. Not only Mikal has to show that he can be the number two, but then OG has to elevate to peak Mikal level. You know what I mean? As well. Like so, not, you know what I mean. So I need OG to give me close to 20. You know what I mean? 18 points a game and be that two-way player as well before I'm jumping on the all right. Maybe let's see what we could get from Randall. You know what I mean?
Elevate.
Yes,
their
absolutely.
game. I got
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, I got you. That's fair. But yeah, I'm really excited about Mikal Bridges. I just think the Knicks have been very fortunate in being able to get players before they pop, and I think he's another one. I think he's another one, and that changes everything for us. No doubt about it. All right, so let's get into is Brunson a star? Is he a superstar? Do you even make a difference before we get into the final question? Can you win a championship with him as your best player? I guess my question to you first, because everybody has a different definition. Is there any differentiation for you? What is your differentiation, I should say, between a star and a superstar?
I mean, I've always said, stars are born in the regular season and superstars are born in the playoffs. He's already shown it. He's a superstar in my book. Like I said earlier, led the league in points per game in the playoffs. That's superstar stuff. You know what I mean? Pre before he got here to New York, elevating his game in Dallas. When Luka went out, he showed that I wouldn't have put him at superstar status at that moment, but that was that was a peek into the window of who he would become and who he is. So 100% superstar in my book, based off my criteria of those guys are born in the playoffs. I don't care what you've done throughout your career. If you unfortunately don't make the playoffs, I can't put you in a superstar category. And then if you make the playoffs and don't excel, you know what I mean, exceed what you've done in the regular season, then I can't put you at superstar status. So yeah, for me 100%, hands down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the different definitions. That's why I said it, right? The different definitions, because sometimes we're disagreeing, but we have different definitions of it. And I think I'm probably more in line with you. A superstar is the next level of stardom, if that makes sense. And for me, is mostly basketball related. I know for others, it's box office and things like that. But for me, it's mostly um, it's just basketball related, and it's those guys that you know what they're gonna do. You have the game plan to stop them, and there's not really much you can do with those guys, and particularly in the playoffs, they elevate themselves as well. And so by that definition, again, just basketball related, Jalen Brunson is one of those is one of those guys. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I understand people's arguments of Gilbert Arenas when they talk about the popularity side of it, but for me that's totally different, because popularity is you know what I mean, like some people are gonna be popular, some people aren't. You know what I mean? Some people are gonna resonate to personalities, some people don't, some people aren't. The numbers are what the numbers are. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about numbers, it's undisputed. It's not, you can't argue it. Your feelings aren't involved when you're talking about a player's production. You know what I mean? And so I get why some people throw that in there, but that has nothing to do with basketball. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, so for some people, John Morant is a superstar, even though if they've made the playoffs, they didn't do that great. But it doesn't matter. Basketball doesn't matter, right? Is just you have the talent, you're really good, your team does okay, and all eyes on you. You're considered a superstar. I get it. I get it. It's just not my definition of a superstar. Um, but let's get to the question of the hour, and it's kind of related to the whole superstar conversation. Some would argue, so can you win a championship with Brunson as your best player? Some would say that in order to win a championship, your best player has to be a superstar. And if you believe Brunson is a superstar, then that answers the question. Um, but some would say not necessarily, you know, um, they have to be a superstar. It's just remove that. It just comes down to, can this player who's the number one option on your team be the best player on a championship contending team? So I'll just ask you, I mean, you believe Brunson is a superstar, so I guess it's a mute point. But overall, do you think a team has to have a superstar in order to win a championship?
Um, it's crazy because I'm probably gonna be one of the few people that feel no,
Mhm.
not necessarily. Um,
Your mic went out. You muted. You muted. Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would piggyback off of Tony. Go ahead. You back.
um, no, I was gonna say, like, you talk about the blueprint of that Detroit Pistons team. You know, I've been on record, saying that's another way to win it, right? When
Right.
when you have solid pieces all around, which I think, whether you feel like the Brunson's a superstar or not, I feel like that's kind of the blueprint the Knicks have been on for a couple of years now, where it's really about the entirety of the team. What we've seen throughout the league is sometimes a superstar isn't enough. You know what I mean? And it's also about the surrounding pieces. So I do think, to answer your question, I do think you can win it without a superstar, but it has to be a top 15. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have guys ready to step up when guys are unavailable. You got to have solid pieces all across the board. But it is a mute point just because I think Brunson's a superstar already. You know what I mean? But the great thing is the supporting cast ain't slouches either. You know what I mean? Like these guys have all these guys still have upward trajectories.
Right. I think it goes without saying whether you're a superstar or not, you have to have the roster. There's no superstar that's gonna drag a non-contending roster to a championship. Like you do have to have the other pieces. But I agree with you. I do think Brunson is a superstar, but I don't from purely basketball definition. But I don't think you have to be a superstar to be a superstar in the league for your team to win a championship, provided you have a championship contending roster. And I believe that Brunson can, and I'm saying I believe, obviously, because we don't know yet, but I believe he can be the best player on a championship contending team because he's someone that, despite the attention, can elevate. Like those are the type of guys you need if you're going to win a championship. Despite the attention, you can still elevate your game. We saw that last season. We saw that in the Miami series the year before last. We saw that when he was in Dallas when Luka was out. He scored, I think it was 30 or 40 something, whatever. And they was like, all right, Luka's going to be out the next game. We know Brunson is going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and it made no difference. He still scored 30, 30 something. Those are the type of guys, whether you consider them superstars or not, that you need if you're going to win a championship. And I think that's why, well, I don't want to get into Philly. But to your point, or to the point, I have the championship teams for the last 20 years. Some would argue that Tatum is not a superstar. I'm not saying I agree with that, but some would argue, and Boston still won. Everyone else though, Joker, Curry, Giannis, LeBron, Kawhi, some would argue he's not a superstar, but he's a really good player, and they won. Duncan, Kobe, of course. When the Celtics won, was the best player Garnett or Pierce? Were either one of them superstars at the time? And they won. And then, of course, to your point, the 2023-2024 Detroit Pistons, was Billups the best player? Was Hamilton the best player? Neither one of them was superstars. So to me, it's almost like in football. You don't have to have a superstar quarterback. The question is always, can you win a Super Bowl with this quarterback? That's the question. Eli Manning was not even close to Tom Brady. But if you but you could tell by his skill set, if you put the right team around him, you can win a Super Bowl. And I think that's the same question when it comes to the best player on your team in the NBA. If I put the right team around this guy, can he be the best player and we win it? And I think for me, the question is yes with Brunson. It remains to be seen though, but I would put my money on it.
The track record speaks for itself, Queen. You know what I mean? He's won at every level. You know what I mean? And like I was telling you offline, he's also lost at every level. You know what I mean? Like he had to lose 2 state championships before he won that elusive state championship in high school. He won his rookie year or his freshman year in Villanova as like a surprise team, if you will. But that next year they was the number 1 team in the nation and got bumped in the second round. You know what I mean? So again, and then came back and doubled down and won the second one. And in all these situations, he didn't start as the star guy.
Right.
Like he had to work his way through the rankings. And the same can be said here. He didn't come here as the star guy. Randy, we had a guy, right? He had to work his way through the rankings. So I think the track record, speaks for itself, and it's encouraging and something to look forward to.
Yeah, and to your point that you made offline, that that bodes well for us when it comes to Randall as well. And it's not even we don't even have to go to Brunson and his struggles before the NBA. We can look at other players in the NBA who struggled in the playoffs early in their career. Embiid, Paul George, and there are others, and who finally, well, some would say, I think Embiid has had some good performances in the playoffs, but for those who are looking for the team to go to the Eastern to move past the second round, they would say, despite his performances, the team hasn't gone anywhere. That's on him. But he has, at least this past year, hurt. I thought he played really well and came through for them. But the point I'm making when it comes to Randall is there have been players who have struggled in the playoffs year after year before they broke out, and who did not even have the I don't know if the excuse might be a strong word, of not having a great team around them and being injured,
The
right? They
context,
still
the
struggle.
context.
The context of injury and not having players around them, and they still struggled, right? And they was able to turn it around. So I'm I'm not going to say Randall can't perform in the playoffs. I think it's fair to say we haven't seen it yet, but I don't think it's fair to say he can't perform in the playoffs. I just don't think that's fair.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. And just to give some nuance on that conversation we had offline, I was telling you how Brunson's first playoff run nobody talks about, right? Where he stunk it up. Every statistical category that he exceeded in the regular season dropped in that playoff run. He was a minus 57 in the 5 games in that playoff run.
Mhm.
And nobody references that, but part of that is because what we seen that very next year, the bounce back, when he dominated Donovan Mitchell, with Luka on the bench, and jumped his playoff numbers, exceeded his regular season number. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that I like to see. Like, it's one thing to come in as a star and be the guy throughout your career, but it's a whole nother thing when you got to work your way into that role and
Mhm.
and fall and get back up. You
Right.
know what I mean? And that's something he's done at every level. He's won at every level, but he's also lost at every level. And those are the traits of a true competitor. You know what I mean? A true superstar.
Yeah. Yeah. And that bodes well for us, you know, if things don't go as expected, this year, that he's somebody that, has bounce back ability. So it's always good um to have that as a trait. Let's check in with the chat before we get in here. Paris Douglas says Brunson was the 33rd pick, though.
That's fair, but there's an argument that he should have been higher. You know what I mean? There's arguments for sure that he shouldn't have been a second round pick, and especially coming off that run in Villanova, because at that point he was the star of Villanova. He was the leader of Villanova. His first 2 years in Villanova, he was not. First year, Josh Hart was the guy. You know what I mean? Second year, he did become the leader, but they didn't win it. You know what I mean? And then third year, he led his team. So at the 33rd pick, my only argument would be he should have been, if maybe not lottery, but he definitely should have been first round pick. And in hindsight, you could argue, you could argue, even you might be able to argue lottery.
In hindsight, yes. Yeah. Rebuild NYK. I think there's too much weight put on the best player. The best teams usually win the championship. Yeah, but the best teams that win the championship, they have somebody that can stir the drink. Yeah. Look at, I mean, I'm just going through the last 20 years. Tatum, the Joker, Curry, Giannis, LeBron, Kawhi, Curry or Durant, Curry, LeBron, Curry, Duncan, LeBron, Nowitzki, Kobe, Garnett, Pierce. There, I think you can argue, maybe they didn't have like a superstar, but they had, the team was super balanced.
Yeah.
Duncan, Wade, Duncan, and then Billups and Hamilton. Billups is going into the Hall of Fame, by the way. Congrats to him.
Looking at sorry, you just looking at Brunson's career. I told you I'm fresh off watching a video on, I mean, his whole life pretty much. He's a Hall of Famer already. Basketball Hall of Fame, because it's based off your career. You know what I mean? And so not NBA strictly Hall of Famer, but on his basketball career, he's a Hall of Famer. And that's crazy.
Listen, I was just thinking about this. I think it was yesterday. My definition of the Hall of Fame has always been the best of the best. That's not the definition of the Hall of Fame. Is that they take so many other things into consideration, right? Not just winning championships, not just breaking championship records or statistics. They take so many things into consideration. I'm not taking anything away from Billups and these other guys, but from my definition, I was like Billups, and there was a few other, Becky Hammond, like Hall of Famers, and I'm not taking anything from them, but I was like, huh? But to your point, they use a different criteria than just best of the best at your position or stats. They use other criteria. So
And it's not just
more, but maybe not.
And it's not just NBA. Like
It's
most
not
people
just
look
NBA.
at the NBA career. You know what I mean? There's guys that there's not many, but there's guys who are in the Hall of Fame who didn't have the biggest or best NBA careers.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's based off you know what I mean?
And
It's
also
based off your whole
Also impact. Think about Yao Ming. His NBA career was short, but the impact in terms of just what he helped the NBA do globally. Vince Carter, when he was in Toronto, and how that helped. So all of that is considered. So you might be right. You might be right when it comes to Brunson. Andrew K. Basketball is great when the Knicks succeed. All right. Paris Duggar, Golden State's last championship had no other star. Okay. All right. Knicks will be 2025 and 26 champs. The media will say you can't win a title without a point guard, but then say you can't win with a point guard as your best player. Okay. Shout out to Jerrell, Dope Soul resident panelist. I think superstar, quote unquote superstar, have non-basketball factors involved, but there are definitely multiple definitions depending on who you ask. Yep, that's definitely true. Keith Turner, you don't have to have a superstar to win a championship, but you definitely have to have a scorer, somebody that could get you a bucket, right? When you need it. Rebuild NYK, it can't be argued. Brunson is an all-star superstar, isn't based on winning. Okay. Okay. Sherwin is all off topic. He was like, can we stop? Can we stop with the we need a backup center? Oh boy. Josh, was Dirk Nowitzki a superstar? Good question. Good question.
But he had that team. So he may fit that team may fit into that Boston, I mean that Detroit category or that Boston category if you don't feel like Garnett or Pierce was superstar.
Right. Superstars attract fans in a turnstile. It's hard to tell in New York because the building was sold out when we had Ronaldo Balkman. All right. Keith Turner, I think Julius Randle has a monster season. He always does that during contract time. I think even when it isn't contract time. Um, I'm rooting for Drew Randle, bounce back from the injury and be a monster this season. I want the haters to have their hands over their mouths and can't say anything. All-star season. Shout out to D Public Enemy number 1. All right. I mean, we're not going to get to all of the comments. Salute to everybody rocking with us today. So I guess the answer to the question for both of us, can he be the best player on the championship contending team? Because remember, Becky Hammond, her thing was he's too short. I don't get that. I don't get the short part. To be the best player in a championship contending team, I don't think it has anything to do with height. I think it's just the ability to get a bucket despite the attention you receive, and particularly in crunch time. Like, to me, that's the separator. You got to have that guy you can go to in crunch time in a big game. And we do. Anything else you want to add?
I was a little worried about Randall and his recovery from the soldier surgery, but the reports at the time was there was no tear, which was a I guess why he chose to try to rehab it before having the surgery. And in my little video that I watched earlier about, I wish I knew the guy who put the video out so I could shout him out. But the Brunson video, it talked about him tearing his labrum in his shoulder and having surgery in 2020. So it just made me more optimistic because he obviously had a tear and missed the remainder of the 2020 season. It came back even better. You know what I mean? So it just it gave me hopes that, maybe Randall comes back even better. And it was the offhand shoulder as well with Brunson and Randall. So just another glimmer of hope.
I mean, I think, I would have to look this up, but if you have, I think surgery is the best option. And if you have the surgery and it's totally healed, like, I could see if it was just rehab, so that potential is there to, pop in and out. But if he had surgery and once he gets to the point where he's 100%, have you read or heard that there's still concerns about?
I haven't heard anything official, but I read it from the chat. So it may be some chat. And I'm not saying people here now. I'm just saying, like, comments throughout different chats. People questioning both Randall and Mitchell Robinson's availability to start the season. So I haven't heard anything definitive, but I'm wondering where these rumblings are coming from. Maybe
as much.
Oh, he has?
Ian Begley said, this was an earlier report, though. It's probably a few weeks now, that we haven't gotten any updates since then. Mitchell Robinson hadn't been cleared. I want to say for contact. He may have worded it different. And so he didn't think he would be ready for the start of the season. That Randall may not be ready for training camp, but he thought he would be ready for the first game or soon after. That was the reports from, Ian Begley. And I do wonder, is this why we're seeing more renewed interest in the Knicks getting a backup center, not just because of the potential injury history, but because Mitchell Robinson may not even be ready for the start of the season. And so that means starting out with Sims and Precious, as your starting center. Yeah. All right. We are out of here. Tell them where they can find us next.
Nicks and Bruises. Check us out. We're gonna talk about these exhibition 9/10 contracts in this last roster spot, who we think might make it, who we think should make it, who we want to make it. A couple other Knick talking points. But yeah, check us out in about 5 to 7 minutes. We'll be right over there. Knicks and Bruises. You got a super chat before we go?
Oh, I do? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Paris Doug, appreciate the super chat. You can't strengthen a shoulder joint injury, period. Okay. Well, he had surgery, so we don't have to worry about, we don't have to worry about that now. He had surgery, so he should be fine. Appreciate the, the super chat. Until next time, family.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.